Now that I've got the walnut glued down to the MDF, and I've got both of those pieces, I can start to cut these down to size to fit inside of the frames. Now, it looks like the frames are about 2 5/8 of an inch in each direction. But I don't want to cut these out exactly that. I want to work my way down to it so I can get an exact fit on there. So first thing I'm going to do is make one straight edge, and then I can set up a stop block so I can keep turning each side to make sure it's perfectly square. The first cut I'll make without any kind of stop block. I just need to get a nice straight edge on one side. And with one side perfectly flat, now I can rotate it 90 degrees and it'll ensure a square cut. So rather than try to measure this, I'm just going to use this box as a guide. Now I know I've got the square corner there. I can just sort of fit it in about like so and make a mark. And obviously that's not going to be a perfect mark, but it'll get me close, and I'll start just outside of that mark to cut and then work my way in. So using my one of my flat edges, I can put it up against this stop block. Now I've set up the stop block outside of that line that I drew just because I don't want to cut too much, because you know, you do that, you can't add it back on. So we'll just give this a shot. And now I've got 3 square sides, so all I'll do is take care of this last cut and it'll ensure it's all square. And I can take it over and check the fit. And I know this is going to be too large, but the nice thing about using rubber bands on this frame is I can just spread it all out, and obviously I can see that it's not meeting. So I'm going to need to take off maybe a 1/16 of an inch on the first cut and see if that gets me down a little bit closer. So I've moved the stop block over just, you know, a fraction of an inch. It's about half of the width of the blade. And what I'll do is I'll just make 2 cuts. To keep it square, I certainly don't need to cut all 4 sides. I can just cut one and then the other, and I'll know that I'm still square. So after a few more passes through the table saw, just creeping my way in, looks like I've got a good fit. So that's going to be the outside of the box, and we've got the 2 halves that are going to fit together like so. And these inside circle pieces I cut out the same way, just inched my way down. The only difference is these need to be a little bit smaller. You don't want them to be tight, so they should just drop in because they're going to be removed, you know, to replace pictures. One last thing I want to do before I glue up these center pieces is I want to route out a really tiny groove. It's just called a shadow line, so that when the frame fits around here, there's a little gap, and it's just a decorative element. So what I've done is I set up a 0 tolerance fence on my router, and I've got an 1/8 inch bit, straight bit set up, and it's up about a 1/16 of an inch high. So it'll be just a 1/16 of an inch in and deep. And now I've got both halves glued up, and I just used a whole bunch of rubber bands just to clamp it down. It doesn't need a lot of clamping power. As long as your joints are fairly tight, it'll hold it. And so you can see that the panel with the shadow line around it, and then the inside is recessed, and that's where the picture will sit. Now I just need to cut some small mortises in the sides so that the hinges will set down in there and that the box will close nicely. But before you do those, cut those mortises, put the box together the way you want it and make sure that you've got the grain going the same direction on each side. You don't want to do something like that, and then if you open up the box, you've got grain going this way, and on the other side the grain's going that way. So figure out whichever way you think looks best, and then you can set up some marks, and I'll take it over to the router. So I've got my marks set up, and I've set up the fence far enough back so where it'll cut the mortise neatly. Now I've got a 3/4 inch straight router bit, which is the same width as the hinge, and so the only thing I wanted to do is make sure that this is up just the thickness of the hinge, which is probably, you know, a 32nd of an inch. It's not very deep. So make a couple passes through here, make sure I don't go all the way through because I certainly don't want to cut through the other side, so I'll stop when it gets through that side. Now I've got that first mortise made. Now, to do the other side, so I don't have to reset the fence back further, I'm just going to feed it through the opposite direction. I'm going to reverse feed it through the router bit. And on something like this, it's pretty small, but you still want to be careful if you're going to do it because the wood could just go flying out. And I actually had to go back and make those mortises a little bit deeper. What you want to look for is you can stick the hinges in there without screwing them down, but you really want to make sure that those mortises are deep enough so that when this closes together you have very little gap in between there, so it makes a nice seal. So now that I've got those down to size, I should be able to screw them in.